Hello, beautiful people.
Oh, hey.
Welcome back. Sports Ball Talk Show. What are we
What's
talking
going
about today?
Ooh.
Preseason. Week 1. We are going to be going over everyone's performance.
Trash cans and studs.
Yeah, when I said everyone, that's what I meant. CJ Stroud was disgusting. He played horribly. He had the exact issues that I said in previous weeks that I figured he was going to have whenever he plays, which, once again, preseason. I've said this previous weeks. It's the preseason, so take everything with a grain of salt. But CJ Stroud is making the stupid mistakes of sitting in the pocket for too long, not reading the defense well enough, stuff like that. Whenever he was in college, he had 12 seconds to stand in the pocket, and once a receiver was open, they would stay open. It's not like that in the NFL. Even the best receivers and the worst defenses aren't going to give you that much time in the pocket, so he just needs to get the ball quicker. There was a time where he had a receiver open, and he pump faked instead of throwing it, and then threw it, and then he threw a pick.
Yeah.
So these are mistakes that are fixable. Hopefully the coaching staff made him do push-ups and laps because that's what you deserve after a performance like that.
Honestly.
But if he keeps that up, then the Texans are going to be, what's the 0-50 for the next 4 years, something like that? Because
they already were.
I'm talking about moving forward, not previously. They're going to stick with him for a couple of years because they invested so much into him, whether he's good or not. We'll see, but that's a atrocious week 1 performance from him. Anthony Richardson looked very good with the Colts. He had one bad play on his first throw an interception.
He realized afterward, and then he did pretty decently.
And then he cooked. Yeah, he threw a lot of yards, a lot of tuds. He's been named the week 1 starter, which I think everyone kind of expected him to be, but there was some discussion about Gardner Minshew starting for the first week or two just so AR can watch. But since then, they've named AR number 1 guy, so good for the Colts. It seems like they found their guy. We'll see if that translates to regular season performance.
It should. I mean, and the other thing here to note, did he rush at all? I don't think he did.
Not as much as he's capable of.
Yeah, exactly. So he still has a lot behind his legs.
Yeah, it wasn't worth rushing him in the preseason and potentially getting hurt for a game that doesn't matter.
Right. So,
another thing is Vikings wide receivers look very good. We said this about
Jordan
training camp last week, but both KJ Osborne and Jordan Addison both looked amazingly in preseason games, so good for them. Seems like they're not going to take a step back at all, losing Adam Thielen, which is good for them. They got another couple guys out there, like KJ Osborne's going to step up, Jordan Addison that can fit into that slot receiver role that Thielen previously held. The Patriots had a very interesting preseason game. They have a quarterback/wide receiver that is the last on their depth chart, and he came out and absolutely just destroyed everyone. Yeah, he was insane. He was the best passer, best receiver, and best rusher of that game on both sides.
Imagine that on your fantasy team.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what he's going to be registered as during the season or if he's going to move up in the depth chart, but he played better than both Bailey Zappi and Mac Jones. He, up till that game, has not been mentioned once as part of the Patriots team. Just because he's so far down on the depth chart, but it seems like Bill Belichick's got himself a guy, whether they use him at quarterback or not. He's very fast, very good cuts he was making to get defenders off of him. He was very impressive, so I guess watch out for him. He's going to be a very interesting Swiss Army knife type guy to see. He seems like he could probably fit that Julian Edelman role pretty well, because Julian Edelman, I don't know if you remember, threw the ball.
Yeah.
Every once in a while when they do trick plays. So
got a good arm.
Line up Malik as a receiver and then just toss him the ball and have him throw to someone else. Hey, Juju Smith-Schuster is one of the best receivers in the league, so yeah. And you like that?
Nah, not really.
Going to the Packers, Romeo Doubs is popping off. This is what we said in training camp as well, and we gave the fantasy advice of, hey, Romeo Doubs is the guy, not Christian Watson. Even though Christian Watson is currently listed as wide receiver 1 on the depth chart, Romeo Doubs is looking very good in training camp. His connection with Jordan Love, who also played extremely well. Very well. Once again, it's all preseason, so take it with a grain of salt, but Romeo Doubs
under Aaron Rodgers, man. Kids really popped off.
Yeah, he seems like he's fitting the Green Bay Packers scheme of having a stud start or bench behind a guy for a few years and then come out and be great. It's what Rodgers did behiing Favre, and now it's what's Love doing did behind Rodgers.
Good young team around him. So,
wait,
didn't their tight end pop off too?
Yeah, who is their tight end? They drafted one.
They drafted a rookie tight end.
He did very well, but Romeo Doubs was the highlight of that offense for sure that game. He was the number 1 target for Jordan Love and played very impressively. I don't know if he's going to climb or drop in fantasy rankings at this point after the preseason game. I don't know how much the fantasy ADPs are going to be affected by these. But keep an eye on him. If you can get him later than in round 8 or later, I would pick up Dubes. Being the number 1 guy in Green Bay, a relatively pass-heavy offense. Again, they have a nice balance, but they definitely rely more on their throwing than their rushing. I would bank on Romeo Dubes having a pretty good season as a top 20 receiver when it comes to fantasy, assuming he maintains that wide receiver 1 share instead of Christian Watson. Not really sure what they're going to do with him. He could be like a Tyler Lockett type guy where he's just good for deep balls, once or twice a game. And then Romeo Dubes is the guy getting 8, 9, 10 targets a game and 6 catches for 80 yards and a touchdown. That's what I would think my prediction would be. So I would definitely go Dubes over Watson at this moment. But we'll see. Moving on to the Panthers, Bryce Young looked impressive. He was very, very good. He was exactly what you want. He was good at the non-coachable things like being calm in the pocket, not letting distress and pressure get to him when the pocket collapses. Kept his feet planted, did not use much of his athleticism in terms of running around, being mobile in the pocket, which I think is really good to do in the preseason. It teaches you to trust your offensive line, teaches you to have good pocket presence so you can read when defenses are breaking and collapsing on you, and then getting the ball out whenever you need to. And he made some very impressive throws. So I think the Panthers got themselves a good quarterback, even though Bryce Young, having some size issues, I guess. Being only 5'10", that's a little bit smaller for a quarterback. But, I mean, we've seen quarterbacks that small do good before. Russell Wilson isn't a particularly tall guy. Drew Brees isn't super tall either. And, I mean, these are some of the greatest. So, I think Bryce Young will have a pretty decent career. He's in the Panthers organization, so we'll see what that does. But, I mean, just based off the preseason game, he's looking like he's going to be a very good guy for the Panthers. They're still not going to win the division, obviously. The Falcons got that unlocked. But, something to look forward to.
We'll see.
The Chiefs seem to have finally found their franchise quarterback after having a bum quarterback for the last decade in the Chiefs. They found their guy. I don't know if you saw this play, and it was really funny, too, because there was this, random guy on the sidelines, number 15. He's a backup quarterback for the Chiefs. He's, freaking out on the sidelines after this one play. But there was a quarterback playing in the preseason for the Chiefs, and he gets, tackled by, 3 or 4 defenders at the same time, and he escapes and evades all of these.
I saw that.
Yeah, and throws an absolute laser through, a defender's arms, just out of his reach, into a receiver's hands. And then this, I don't know, I think his name is Patrick Mahomes, some, bum-ass backup quarterback on the sideline starts going crazy. It's dude, you're not playing. This guy is clearly going to take the starting job from you.
Don't draft this guy in your drafts because we still don't know what the future is for him. But
yeah, I wouldn't draft him at this point yet, but he's definitely someone to look forward to. That was a really good plays by him. But on a serious note, Chad Henne was a staple of that Chiefs offense for a while. It's a backup for Patrick Mahomes, as much as backup quarterbacks can be. He played a lot more than most people expected him to, especially in playoff games. He played, I think, every postseason for at least a few snaps these past few years, and did very well. If Chad Henne hadn't been a reliable, serviceable quarterback when Patrick Mahomes goes down, they probably would have lost some of those close games. And it looks like this backup that they got now is going to be able to fit that role pretty well. If Patrick Mahomes goes down, this guy can step in and do not just as well, obviously, but well enough with the skills that they have on that offense with guys like Travis Kelce and a good coaching staff that he'll be able to keep them in the game if Mahomes goes down for a quarter or so.
Speaking of which, Sky Moore looked pretty decent.
He did?
He looked pretty well. Yeah. Watch out for him. There's a reason he's been rising in the drafts, and that kid seems to have a really good connection with Mahomes. And since Tony's been rehabbing the knee or whatnot, he's been getting a lot more reps with Mahomes. So be on the lookout for him. He's just looking pretty good.
Yeah. Dolphins, A-Chain looked very good in the preseason. We said this once again a couple weeks ago. We figured A-Chain would be one of these guys that breaks out a little bit his rookie season. He's not going to be a 1,200-yard, 15-touchdown rusher, of course, because it's running back by committee. But he's going to – I think he, by midway through the season, will be that RB1 for that offense. I think Jeff Wilson's one of those guys that's really good for a game or two. Well,
don't get me wrong. I think he's – no offense to everyone else in that offense. I think he's got more talent than everyone else. The issue is – that revolving door of running backs that we have at Miami is the issue. And
that was going to be my point with him not having those high stat numbers, because they do have that running back by committee, which good, if one gets hurt, if one needs to sit out for a couple plays, whatever it may be, it works because it's still got a couple other guys there. But when I say RB1, I mean the guy that gets the most out of the three, and if they have to rely on one running back for one play, they're going to give it to A-Chain. I think by midway through the season, he'll step into that role, because Jeff Wilson did really good last year whenever he got traded to the Dolphins for a few games, but then he just kind of got wore out and didn't do much. Raheem Mostert is a reliable, I'd say slightly below mediocre guy. Raheem Mostert is definitely not one of the worst backs in the league, but he's not in the top half. He's just below top half, I would say, if you're including all RB1s and 2s. And I think A-Chain has the potential to do very well. I mean, obviously, preseason, But, if he can play anything like that in the regular season, I think that he'll be fantastic. So, hey, that's something happy to be about for you Dolphins fans.
Yeah, we also had a pretty good defensive player. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but he was pretty solid during preseason. Very excited to see him ball out there and help us out. Our defense is going to be ridiculous this year. Hands down, top 5 defense.
Your offensive line is horrible, though. I don't know if you saw in both their preseason game and their training camp game against the Falcons, Tua had no time in that pocket at all against the Falcons. And, nothing against the Falcons.
We'll get there.
But the Falcons' defensive line isn't what makes a Falcon. They have Grady Jarrett, obviously, and stuff like that. That's not, horrible worse in the league, but it's not their strong suit. And the fact that the Falcons put a whooping on that Dolphins O-line, and the AFC East with guys like the Jets and the Bills, who have great defensive lines, and the Patriots, who got guys like Matt Judon, Tua's going to get eaten alive. But Skylar Thompson played in the preseason game, and what do you think about that?
He needs a little bit more work, but otherwise...
Yeah, he's never going to be a guy in the NFL, to put it that way. Yeah. Not much else to say about that, is there? He's just not.
Work. Yeah.
He's just not.
No, that was... Same with Mike White, dude. A little disappointed there.
I don't know what you really expected from Mike White.
I don't know, dude. He seemed to have, this Cinderella story type of thing with him at the Jets, the hero that they didn't need, but they kind of needed in the moment. The bandage that they needed. Yeah, he was the Band-Aid that the Jets needed, and man, I was kind of disappointed. I was hoping. Here's the thing: I bet overs on the first 4 games. I would have hit it if the Dolphins got their stuff together.
Wait, you bet money on the preseason?
Yes, I bet money on a preseason.
You said it last week, and it kind of got overshadowed. But you mentioned at the end, as I was still talking, you said, I have a crippling gambling addiction.
Did I say
you
that?
You did, and I just want to point that back out because...
Yeah, I mean, $5 to win 200. I mean,
yeah, in the preseason,
all overs. What are the odds of that?
I mean, yeah, it's the preseason, so I mean, whatever. But you still wasted money on the preseason game, so screw you.
Here's the other thing, dude. I had the winners for all of them. Not to get sidetracked. Didn't bet any money on that, and they all came out correctly, and I was pissed off. And that's why you don't gamble, kids.
Gamble, just be smarter than Gian whenever you do so, because he is not. Stetson Bennett for the Rams looked pretty good.
Oh, my goodness.
That's the other thing.
Yes.
Stetson Bennett, I'm a big Stetson Bennett guy, UGA fan, of course. I can't not like Stetson Bennett. He looked pretty well. I mean, there's talks that the Rams are going to move on from Matt Stafford after this next season because of contract negotiations and also injuries. Fair, Matt Stafford won you a ring. He's getting older. I don't think he's a guy that's going to go win you another one. And they've been talking about Kirk Cousins. I think it's the Niners and the Rams that have been in discussion for after this upcoming season, going in on Kirk Cousins as the Rams and Niners. But Stetson Bennett looked pretty good. So
very solid.
I don't know if he's going to be a guy that they play as their starter.
Yeah,
and I mean, I think that's just what you get when you get a guy who's won 2 national championships back-to-back. You get a guy who's calmer in big situations. So that's, once again, experience you can't really teach. That's just valuable for the team. So I'm not sure if they're going to run with Stetson Bennett. If Matt Stafford goes down this season, or if they trade him, or if he sits, whatever may happen, or after the season, whenever they have to decide if they want to keep Stafford or move on to someone like Kirk Cousins. I think Kirk Cousins would be huge for the Rams, but I also don't think Kirk could go win a ring there because the Rams have so many issues now that A.J. Whitworth's retired, AD's getting old, Jalen Ramsey's gone, a lot of their other players retired that helped them win that Super Bowl. OBJ's not there anymore. Cooper Kupp is still a guy, obviously, but who knows how well he's going to do when he's the only person there. So we'll see. Moving back to trash cans, because we talked about a lot of studs.
Wait, before we go. Same game. Elijah Dotson for the Chargers. He looked pretty solid for a running back. And I know the Chargers and Eckler and all that. I think Eckler got paid. But Chargers had some issues at running back depth. Because behind them they had Josh Kelly. Man. Elijah Dotson, 40-yard tutty. Kind of like that. And Quentin Johnston also very solid. Chargers look like an offensive.
Wait, did you say Quentin Johnston?
Quentin Johnston also
he looked horrible in the preseason game. He didn't do shit.
I thought he did.
No,
did he not get a touchdown?
Look up his stats. Maybe I'm thinking of someone else, but that was the first guy I was going to mention when we talk about bums in the preseason, because I knew that would piss you off. But yeah, Quentin Johnston did not look good. Maybe I don't remember what his stats were, but I know watching him, he just didn't make plays like you thought a guy like him would. But let's see the stats real quick. What did he get on receiving?
He had a tutty, 3 receptions for 10 yards.
Yeah.
I just remember the tutty.
3 for 10. I mean, a touchdown's obviously good, but like when you're 3 receptions for 10 yards.
Yeah, but I mean,
if you go back and watch some of his film, there was a lot of games, so unfortunately we didn't watch every single one, obviously, but go watch like some of his like targets and stuff like that, and some of the plays that he made. It's preseason, so like I'm not gonna hold it too hard against him, but if he can't even get it together in the preseason, especially when their quarterback Easton Stick looked fantastic during the preseason game.
Easton Stick did.
I mean, he's always been like a kind of a meme guy for the Chargers, but he's been good. So especially with him playing well, you would think that Quentin Johnston would play well too, but he didn't.
Maybe Easton Stick doesn't like Quentin Johnston.
Well, it's not that because he gave Quentin Johnston the ball. He just didn't get more than like 2 yards a carry. Right. And so that's the problem.
Fair enough.
So I don't know what you want to do about that. But
he had a touchdown. I don't know. I'm just slightly biased, but yeah, no, numbers don't look well. But we'll see. We'll see the next week's this week's preseason.
Yeah. Now
again, Elijah Dotson, keep him on your radar. 2 tutties. Yeah, 6 carries for 92 yards. That's pretty dumb. That's pretty dummy good, dude.
I mean, it's all right. Stats don't mean everything.
I mean, it's better than
Speaking of stats don't mean everything, and guy who... This might be a hot take. I'm not sure if the news has traveled around that Justin Fields is a fraud yet, but his stats were incredible, but he played like shit. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah,
he had 3...
Dink and dunk.
He had 3 throws.
Dink and dunk.
And he had almost 200 yards, or like 123 yards on those 3 throws. But his air yards were -8. He had every throw was either he had -2, -2, -3 yards for each of his throws, and then DJ Moore just took that ball and ran 80 yards. Like, I mean, it's
wide receiver screen pass.
I mean, I'm not saying Justin Fields
running back screen pass.
Yeah, like okay, maybe Justin Fields can play, but we didn't see that from these stats. Like he threw -8 yards, but got 130 because the guys he threw to did very well. But
Khalil Herbert,
it's good for DJ Moore. Khalil Herbert looked good as well, but preseason running backs mean nothing because they're playing against backup defensive lines.
Right.
So that's why I also didn't mention Elijah Dawson for the Chargers, although he looked good, and it's probably worth mentioning. Running backs in particular, I don't like talking about in the preseason, just because when you're playing against a backup defensive line, like odds are you're going to play good, unless you play like shit, in which case we're going to talk about it. Because if you can't play good against backup defensive lines, you're not going to play good against starting ones. Yeah, Khalil Herbert looked good, and Justin Fields was himself, as usual. DJ Moore obviously was incredible because he took a -2 yard catch and turned it into a positive 80-yard catch. So good for them. I mean, I don't know what the Bears think they're going to do with that. They can't do that every play, especially against starting defenses. And Justin Fields still needs to learn to throw the ball that way. But the last thing I think, and you can interrupt me if I am forgetting someone, but last person I want to mention for the preseason, this is back to studs, is Sam MF and Darnold. He played incredible. Oh, that reminds me of a trash can. That's Trey Lance. Trey Lance sucks.
Yep.
But Sam Darnold,
he has 112 yards in the tutty, but
he just
dinked and dunked.
It wasn't just that. He just anytime the pocket collapsed a little bit, he panicked and didn't get the ball out and made good throws, which I think is the single most important thing as a quarterback is pocket presence and being calm in the pocket when it collapses and being able to know where defenders are coming from, get the ball out when you need to, throw it away if you need to. Trey Lance just did not look good. I mean, his stats look one thing, but same thing with like Justin Fields, his stats look good, but I mean, we didn't really see anything from Fields. I think Trey Lance and the Niners is done. I don't see him being higher than QB3 on the depth chart because Sam Darnold played very, very well.
He played all right.
I mean, it's not like he played for a ton, but he made some really good throws under pressure, perfect ball over the shoulder into the hands of a receiver. So Sam Darnold looks like he can be good, especially he's another guy, not quite to the level of Baker Mayfield, but I feel like a guy that really wasn't given a fair chance.
Right.
He's done nothing but play for horrible teams and horrible coaches and just getting dumped onto the next team and not getting enough time to establish himself.
The next team that's going to tank and whatnot.
Exactly. And I'm not a Sam Darnold fan. I'm never going to buy a jersey or even accept a free one or root for him or any capacity.
Not even accept the free one.
Okay, I take that. I would get the free Niners Darnold jersey because I like the Niners. I want a Niners jersey and I just like the colors, but I would peel off the Darnold nameplate off the back.
Just get me a Niners jersey without the nameplate.
I'll take a blank one.
Sorry, buddy.
But Sam Darnold did look good, and I feel like being in the Niners gives him an opportunity because even though he's not going to be the starting guy, I think it's going to be Brock Purdy, and I think that's what they should do. That's probably what they will do. They should just trade Trey Lance for a fifth rounder and cut their losses. Darnold is your backup, or if Trey Lance is okay being the QB3, but I think he's going to want out of that situation and go somewhere where he has maybe a chance. But I don't think that's... People have been saying that. I like Ritter. I didn't. I wasn't high on Ritter, but seeing him in the preseason, seeing him in training camp and things like that, some of the throws he was making against the Dolphins was just disgusting. Once again, don't take it for anything, but if Trey Lance can't look good there and Desmond Ritter can, I'm taking Desmond Ritter, especially now that he's had 2 years in that offense to build up, and Trey Lance is probably going to go through some mental health issues after what else happening at the moment. I think Sam Darnold's going to be a serviceable backup. He'll probably get some chances to play if Brock Purdy needs a break, gets hurt, whatever it may be. I think Sam Darnold isn't going to really take much of a step back from Brock Purdy in terms of the Niners' production, since the quarterback position is so unimportant in that offense compared to other teams.
Right.
I think Sam Darnold's a fine backup. Get rid of Trey Lance. Is there anyone else from the preseason that you wanted to talk about, or was that all the? I think that was all the particularly good or bad people that I wanted to talk about. Not much on the defensive side, just because
maybe DTR on the Browns. He's been balling out the last 2 weeks. I mean, DTR, shout out to you. You've been doing pretty decent, so can't complain there.
Yeah, that's true. He did do very well in the Hall of Fame game.
Oh, and Sam Howell.
How did he play? I did not check the Commanders. That's the one game I forgot to check. I just realized that.
Let me double check here. I know he balled out.
I like Sam Howell. I've said this before. I said it with them just in general.
Oh, he didn't ball out, but I mean, pretty decent. 77 yards and a tutty.
In 9 of 12, so 75% completion rating. I mean, yeah, that's fine for a preseason game. He's still learning. He hasn't really played too much. Plus, they got guys like Jacoby Brissett and backup who's very good anyway. That can fill in if he takes a step back. But
Brissett got a rushing touchdown. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, good for Brissett.
Yeah.
Threw an interception too, but whatever.
You win some, you lose some. But no, fine backup.
Yeah, he'll be fine. I think Sam Howell will develop and be a fine, mediocre quarterback. I think he'll be about as good as Kenny Pickett was last year, maybe a little bit better, just because he's had a little bit more time than Kenny Pickett did. But that's all for preseason week 1. We'll be back with preseason week 2, of course, as we get more trash cans and studs.
Oh yeah, we're gonna be watching them all this time.
Yeah, we'll do our best. Obviously, the ones that are playing at the same time, we'll have to flip back and forth, but we'll move on.
It's so